And I believe we are live. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I know we have other members will be joining us as we go along, but knowing that we have the clock has just struck 12 on the East Coast, I thought now would be a great time for us to kind of launch into this discussion. Just as way of introduction, what I'd like to share is just a couple of housekeeping issues up front. Folks, with GoToWebinar, we've got some fantastic features here. We will be running some polls throughout the session. This session is being recorded and we'll provide you with a copy of this recording after the webinar. But I'll also call your attention to the toolbar that you have on your screen. And if you have questions that you'd like to ask, if you'd like to participate in the chat, you can do that. We'll be monitoring that as we go along as well. And of course, again, a copy of this recording will be made available to those who want to listen to it again. We'd be happy to provide that to you. So just to begin our discussion today, I'll introduce myself. My name's John Loyak, and I'm the Online Partner Program Manager here at IBT Online. And I'll just start with a brief introduction to IBT Online. We're a U.S. company. I am based here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're 100% focused on helping American businesses get the online tools they need. This is all about focusing on helping businesses use digital tools to increase their international sales. So whatever we can do to help the North Carolina specialty foods companies sell their products all over the world using digital tools, that's a space that we're happy to help with. So whatever it really takes in terms of, I typically tell people that, websites are the essential building block. It's your very best tool. We'll talk a little bit about that more, but there's also an amazing suite of online marketing tools that we'll talk about as well. And certainly the world of e-commerce continues to explode on an international level. And we just want to share some information about that. This is all about growing your businesses. So helping deliver export growth, sales growth, brand growth, and business growth for the folks who are involved in the NC Specialty Foods business. Our company's been around for 20 years, and we're very, very proud of the online global programs that we've developed. These are dedicated online global programs for many U.S. states, notably North Carolina. We're very happy here in North Carolina to work with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. The goal of the program is to focus on top-line growth for exporters, so providing online tools to North Carolina businesses to grow their sales. We'll talk more about a little bit about that later, but let me introduce you to some of the folks who are going to be joining our discussion today. Susanna Hardy is our Chief Content Officer here at IBT Online. She's going to talk a little bit about online marketing, e-commerce, and a variety of other things that I think you'll find some really fascinating information on when you see the power of these type of programs. And then somebody who is working with the NC Specialty Foods businesses in the state of North Carolina every single day is Ali Tszynski. Ali, thank you very much for joining us today. She's International Marketing Specialist with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. So with that, Ali, let me turn it over to you. I think I'm jumping ahead. We'll take a look at our agenda. I'm going to turn it over to Ali so that she can introduce herself and talk about the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Department and what they do. I want to share some very specific information about a food exporter that IBT Online has worked with in helping them increase sales all over the world. We're going to talk about why businesses need this. Why do North Carolina exporters need these type of tools? And believe me, when we share some of the data, you're going to walk away thinking that this is something that everybody needs to be looking at. We'll talk about some of the best practices involved in developing these websites and e-commerce strategies for North Carolina businesses. Susanna's going to walk us through some of the international online marketing opportunities that are available for businesses. And then we'll come back, go over some of the takeaways, talk about next steps, and open things up for questions. So with that, Ali, let me turn it over to you to provide a little bit of information on the North Carolina Department of Agriculture.
Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Tszynski. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. Like he said, I'm an international marketing specialist for North Carolina Department of Agriculture. I cover specialty foods, beer, and spirits. At NCDA and International Marketing, we host domestic and international trade shows. We facilitate bringing North Carolina companies to those trade shows. We also do inbound trade missions where we bring buyers into the country and have them meet with companies here. And I also work closely with the North Carolina Specialty Food Association. I assist the membership and we provide financial support to the association too. At the end, I'll have a few remarks about some going-ons with the association, some upcoming events that you should be aware of. But for now, I will turn it back over to John and Susanna.
Thank you. And I think one of the best places for us to start is to talk a little bit about one of the businesses that we've worked with here in North Carolina, and give you a little bit of give you some of their background. And so, like many of the businesses joining us today, this is a food manufacturer. This is a specialty company, Yo Mama's Foods. I love the name of the company, and they make some absolutely amazing pasta sauces, salsas, a variety of other products. They've done a lot to develop their website. They've done a lot to kind of make sure that they're getting their brand out there. And they're very, very proud of their history. They're proud of their devotion to providing a top quality craft product. And it's something that has continued to grow generation by generation. And so they want all these things to be expressed as a part of their business. They include, like many of you, they include recipes on their websites. They include all kinds of information about their products, but they also want people to know a little bit about them as well. And so they brought us in to help them on an international level. And they were looking to break beyond just the US market. They wanted to break into Mexico and ultimately into other markets in Latin America as well. And so we took them through a kind of what we referred to as a localization of their website. And so we made sure that their business was going to be able to be found online. What's important about this is there's a variety of things that will go into this. We'll talk about what some of the key elements of website localization are. It's more than just translation. There's a lot of businesses today that will download a Google widget that will translate your website. It does not mean that international buyers will find you. And so we've developed websites that are developed so that businesses can be found and make it easier to do business with. And when you make it easier to do business with your business, you find that you're doing more in terms of sales. And so developing this Spanish language website helped them reach into Mexico now, and they're beginning to see an increase in sales and seeing things that their partners in Mexico are able to take full advantage of now. I will talk about this as we go along, but it is, whether we're talking about an English language website or we're talking about a Spanish language website, country by country, there are very specific differentiators from one to the next. You know, all Spanish is not the same, as many of you know. The Spanish spoken in Spain can be very different from the Spanish spoken in Mexico, just like English in the UK versus English here in the US. So let's jump into that a little bit and talk about why North Carolina businesses, why do specialty food manufacturers here in North Carolina need online tools? Just to begin, I just want to start with some basic statistics, walk you all through a little bit about this, because it really is an amazing story, and it's one that continues to grow. And what I can tell you is month by month, we see new changes to this world. But if we look at the world overall, and these are numbers that were gathered back in October of 2022. One thing I can tell you is already, we've read news back in late October that the total world population has broken 8 billion now. And so we're talking about a total population of 8 billion out there, 57% of them living in cities. And guess what they have in common with us? They are unique mobile phone users as well. They use the internet. They are active on social media. This is how they find products today. So almost 69% of the world's population has unique mobile phones that they are using. In a lot of markets internationally, people may have more than one phone. 63, almost 64% of the world's population is, what are they using those phones for? They're using them to access the internet. And once they're on the internet, what are they doing with it? Well, almost 60% of the world's population is active currently today on social media, variety of different things, and we'll talk about some of those things as we move forward. But if I were to take a look at social media usage alone and look at some of the numbers behind that, what we see is, as we saw in the previous slide, 4.74 billion people are active on social media today. That's something that's growing by, I really can't resist sharing a few more stats on some of these things, but we said 5 billion of us are online, of which 4.7 use social media. That's growing. Last year it was up 4.2%, which doesn't necessarily seem like it's a whole lot until you look at what those numbers are. That's 190 million people joining social media. And so this is something that is certainly continues to grow in significant ways. The average amount of time that people are spent on them is significant as well. On average, 2.5 hours of usage, and that continues to grow as well. They're using a variety of social media platforms. It is not one size fits all. I mean, we're here in the US, we're very familiar with things like LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and a variety of other tools, but there's more and more coming out every day. And so the average number of social platforms used each month, typically around 7.2. And so this is the kind of thing that just continues to grow. I would say that the one thing for the folks who are attending today's session that I would tell you is that the average time spent online per person continues to increase significantly. 7 hours a day, and of that 2.5 are on that social media. And so this is why the internet is such an important tool for your business. You know today that to reach people here in the US, your website's one of your most important tools. Same applies internationally, and there are a number of things that we'd like to share with you about some of those things to consider as you look into some of those new opportunities. To take a little, I don't want to overwhelm you with the data, and I would say, if I put myself in your position and thinking about what you need to focus on, I would say that really comes down to 2 core online business development tools. Number one is your website. To make things as very straightforward as you can. These are 2 things that are certainly interconnected, the websites and the online marketing. The websites can be big or small. They can be e-commerce enabled. I've taken a look at some of the businesses that are joining us today. I've taken a look at some of your websites. You've got great stories to tell. You're including information about your families on your websites and the history of your business. It all depends on your corporate goals, your strategy, your resources. But whatever the size and functionality of the website, we always recommend some form of online marketing. So view that as a complement to the website. So the online marketing could be things like search engine marketing, social media marketing, all the analytics that are in place there. And more we're seeing businesses look at video as a way to reach their customer bases. And so the internet's a very competitive place these days. And so a website on its own will struggle. And so complementing that by the online marketing work is something that can have a significant impact on your business. So what will all this look like when you have an international website? Just to kind of give you an idea of that. So here we are in North Carolina. In practice, it helps to think of these websites as real estate, digital real estate. Your US domestic market website can have its own communications policy surrounding it. You're going to use search engine optimization and social media to draw clients in. Many of you are already doing that. That's a way to draw those the folks into your US website. For your international clients and prospects, you need a similar environment, similar online environment or real estate in those markets. So let's say you're targeting the French market and the Brazilian markets. Then that needs dedicated localized websites as well. They need their own search engine and social media marketing strategy. All of these act as a springboard for your communications. All this feeds back to the US website, certainly should be linked. That's something that we would certainly encourage. And so as a takeaway, as you're thinking about what your international strategy could be, there's an awful lot of opportunities for your businesses out there, but making sure that you have localized websites first and then the online marketing, will give you the type of real estate you need. It'll provide clear goals, a buyer journey, mapping, metrics, all the other essentials that we'll talk about. So These are all the very important pieces that you need in place before you go along. So Susanna, I'm going to close with this slide, and I think we're going to do a poll after this one, but just to kind of give you a sense of, again, to recap all of this, and for the exporters on our call today, I would tell you that you can benefit from localized websites because the world is going online more now than ever. In a world where everything is seemingly in short supply, the online world can help you connect with future clients, future employees, certainly suppliers. All of them are searching online for you in their local online environments. That's a very important distinction. And having effective online business development tools are essential to helping you get found, be understood, and be easy to do business with in your target markets. And so that's what we're talking a little bit about today. That was my introduction. And let's get into a little bit more depth on some of the things that I've mentioned so far.
John, thank you so much, and Ali as well, and greetings everybody. I'm delighted to be here and to be doing this. But before I launch, before I start talking about the websites and e-commerce and marketing, I just want to launch a quick poll to all of you and ask you if you have any interest in those North Carolina online global programs that John noted, and if they're particularly, they can be about websites, e-commerce, or marketing. Now he's going to ask you if you have any interest in precisely the localized websites in particular. And I must say, the specialist food groups they're a very reactive bunch. They're all clicking on their mouse, which I'm very proud of. Thank you very much for your responses. You all are, very high attendance right there on that. Thank you. We will have two other little polls just about that as well, but thank you very much for that. And then close that poll. Let's now talk about best practice websites, e-commerce strategies. I was told that many of you have some e-commerce strategies, particularly in your fields. You're often B2C companies, and so e-commerce is a strong route to market for many of you. And I just wanted to sort of recap a couple of best practice website qualities, and really just emphasize the point that John was making earlier. For us, from our point of view, and in today's world, 2023, your website is your best local sales rep. And by local, we mean wherever it is you want to sell. That can be within North Carolina, or it can be Canada or Mexico, whatever it is, but that your local sales rep is today your website. If someone's looking to, think of yourself even. If you get a new tip, oh, look at that company, where do you go? You look to the internet and check out their website. So the first step of anything in terms of your sales and marketing is to make sure that your website is fit for purpose. And what that means is, in a sense, that local aspect. So making sure that your local user experience, and again, that's whether that's your local food farm experience in North Carolina, or whether that's the farmers market in Japan, those are all local websites. So what is fit for purpose? What does that actually mean? I'm kind of just gripping it down. I mean, this is not a webinar only about websites, so I'm really condensing it down to like, a little tiny slide. I took some screenshots of North Carolina companies that none of them are in the food business, but all of them have very much fit for purpose websites. They're strong, they're robust, they're secure. So please, in today's world, make sure that your website is secure. It has an SSL certificate linked to it. There's an amazing number of companies that still do not do that. And if you go on a website, if I go on a website today that does not have an SSL certificate, I leave immediately. So please make sure that your website is stable and secure. By stable, I also mean that you've got a good hosting service provider, that you really looked at your website and said, well, this needs to be absolutely backed up and with a strong hosting provider behind it, with a good CRM content behind it. Most of all, what it looks like. How's that user experience? Is it easy to navigate? What about the load speeds? Google aims for under 2 seconds load speed. Under 2 seconds, because they say that's our attention span in today's world, 2 seconds max. So make sure that you are easy to load and download and that it's easy to read. Don't put pale yellow on a white, as I have. Make sure that you have good, clear calls to action, CTAs, so that you instruct or help guide your user to know where to go next on their website. Make sure they know how to contact you. Where are your price lists? How do I know this? Where do I go from here? All websites, as John was talking earlier, need to be mobile enabled today. Most people look at websites on their phone or their laptop or all kinds of different sizes. So don't only think of the big home computer. Search engine optimization is absolutely essential, and it is a fine, dark art, but it is absolutely essential. The absolute basics of SEO is making sure that you have keywords and that they're in the H1s, the H2s, metadata, and alt tags. And if you don't know what that is, pop a question into the question box and I'll answer it. Most important is content. That's visual content, imagery, and words. Any kind of content that is there. And that has to be fresh, it has to be genuine, it has to be your voice, and it has to resonate with your buyer persona, which we'll talk about in a moment. I thought I'd just do a quick little slide here. This is a North Carolina company. I hope that this works. Yes. So hopefully this will download. This is a North Carolina company. We redesigned their US website and we did their Brazilian, Mexican and Canadian websites as well. Latest trends, dynamic imagery, amazing imagery, blogs, which are not just sort of blogs, but news you can use, really interesting stuff. Soft sell, inbound method, not outbound method. Nothing too strident, only the nice parts of it. And then I guess to do a little rappel with what John Wyke was talking about earlier in terms of Your Mama's Food, authenticity and this notion of local. So stock imagery these days, I've seen the same image on so many websites. I know those images. But when you have genuine imagery, like you're getting in this website here, whereas the general people on the floor making these things, it is very impactful, much more so than a stock image. So there you go, some nice to haves on your website for that. And please do check out their website. We love it. They like it too. Your website also, the other nice to haves are sort of, your website's top job, as it were. What does your website do? Your website, like any online tool, grows your top line. That's what its job is supposed to be. All your online tools, whether it's marketing or your website, are there to grow your top line. And that can be about brand awareness, lead generation, supporting distributors, finding distributors. All of that is about growing your top line. And that's why I often think, the simplest way to do it and make sure that your website and your marketing is doing its job is to really treat it like a person. I mean, everybody's budget is tight. Nobody can hire enough people. Well, pretend that your website and your online marketing are people. Invite them into the sales and marketing meeting. Say, okay, we're going to have this, we're going to a trade show. What are you doing about your website on that trade show? What are you doing in terms of online marketing for that trade show? We're launching a new product. Well, what's the website got to do with that? How can we show that? How can we do things on the website for that? So I think that try and think of your website and your online marketing like a real person. Bring them into the meeting each time. Put them in a chair and say, okay, website, what's your view on this? Where do you stand on that? How do we use you on that? Same with your online marketing. Many of you, as in specialty food, go towards e-commerce. So I thought I'd do a little tiny brief outline of e-commerce strategies for companies. And there are basically 3 different types of strategies you can have. In each case, it helps to have a good, stable, strong, safe, fit for purpose website. So your website is your core base, no matter what strategy of e-commerce you go to. Even if you say, I'm only going on Amazon, you still need a website. Otherwise, Amazon will get more and more brand awareness. You will get none. So please do make sure, no matter what the strategy is, that you have a strong localized website for your US market and for your international markets, obviously. So the three strategies you can have: you can go on an online marketplace, and that can be a generalist, Amazon or Mercado Libre or whatever, or it can be very specialized ones and distributor ones. There are specialized ones for the food industry. Or you can say, no, everything's in-house. I want my own e-commerce platform, like the example given earlier by John of Yo Mama's Food. Or else you can combine them. I'll say, I'm going to have my own e-commerce platform. I'm also going to be selling via my distributors and so on. Just sort of quickly running through that, there's, you know, when you think of the big giants of the generalist marketplaces, Amazon is the #1 across the world by a long way, a long way. But if you're looking at very specific markets, you say, well, you know, Amazon exists obviously across South America and Latin America, but maybe I should go even more, you know, what was the first market? What's the first market in Latin America? I really know that my product, my North Carolina specialty food, will sell incredibly well in Argentina. Well, then maybe you should look at Mercado Libre instead of Amazon. It's the #1 in Argentina, for example. So just, you know, don't only think of Amazon when you think of generalist marketplaces. Specialist marketplaces tend to be these industry-focused groups. And you'll have ones about specialty foods, you'll have ones about electrical products, you know, appliances, you'll have ones for the airlines industries. And those are some of the largest ones around. So these act as like auction houses almost. You'd say online auction houses, online distributors for these things. And again, you can do that. There are pros and cons to all of these different strategies. I mean, a very visible one for this, that's why I chose the picture on the left, is your product is displayed next to your competitor. And you never really know if your specialist distributor is favoring you or their own product or a cheaper one, or so you're not in control. That's a little bit difficult. So another one that to go through is just to say, I want my own platform. It's all about me. It's all about, I want control of everything. And here, your own global e-commerce platform, you really have to have a strong tech stack. So there's some real non-negotiables here. You know, you have to be able to have the depth of pocket to invest in the necessary infrastructure. And that's why Shopify has been such a success in the last few years. It has really transformed itself into a one-stop shop for e-commerce if you don't have all the tech stack that you need. And that's why it's gained a lot of, but there are quite a lot of restrictions on Shopify as well. Anyway, so that is another possible way forward for e-commerce. Again, really be careful if you're going internationally, especially make sure that you're choosing the right platform. Not all of them work well across different markets. So again, and if you go into a certain type of Shopify, it's very hard then to really go internationally beyond borders. So do make sure that you are looking carefully at your platforms before you go there, because as you grow, you will be growing internationally. You know, you will want to sell your specialty foods in Japan, Argentina, Mexico, Canada, and so on. So make sure you have the right platforms from the very start, otherwise it's hard to get out of afterwards. There's also a combination. You could have your own plus going through various, you know, plus Amazon or plus, you know, plus specialty distributors. But just as I said before, in each case, the core base has to be that your own online tools, your own website and marketing stands up to scrutiny in this purpose. So just a couple of examples here. I mean, this is it's actually not a North Carolina. I think it's from a Virginia company. But I wanted to show it because they have their own e-commerce platforms. It's all in-house. Everything's in-house. Their distribution, everything. And they run a US, UK, French, and German websites, or we run them for them, and all e-commerce enabled. They have local fulfillment centers for each. Each one has a localized marketing campaign. for this. So again, this is quite a robust platform that they have, and we've been delighted to share some of that journey with them and help where we can. It's all about control of their brand. Their brand for them is absolutely the key. They say without that, we simply have nothing in our brand and our business and so on. So they really have to have total control of that. And as John was saying earlier, and I've noted on this slide, there are some grants available for North Carolina Online Global programs for websites, for e-commerce, and for marketing. And here's a combination. Here's an example of a combination. This is a company called Wind River Chimes. Lovely. They make wind chimes. North Carolina company. And here they have done a combination of having their own websites. And this one I've taken their French and German. And then they also sell on Amazon directly. So there's they have an Amazon shop as well. So they're doing all those things as well. But they are finding that their Amazon store does get a lot of competition, and they're worried about their brand on Amazon, but nonetheless they do some good volume sales on Amazon. So decided to go to a combination. I think one of the big points that I want to make as well is that e-commerce these days is simply such a busy place, hard to do it on your own without really doing the online marketing these days. You need the online marketing to get the brand awareness. The internet is a competitive place right now. No matter how yummy your specialty food might be, you do need to make sure that you are, sticking above the parapet and making sure that you're seen by people. And that's where the online marketing comes in. Before I talk more about online marketing, let me launch the poll, because I love these polls. It gives me a time to drink my tea. So just asking you all about e-commerce, and if that's something that interests you in particular. And this is also, if you have, do you want to learn more about e-commerce, the online global programs? Are you interested in the domestic ones, in the international ones? Still thinking about it? And this will also help us really design other products for you. If there's a lot of interest in e-commerce, then we can do dedicated resources for you just on e-commerce or just on marketing or whatever. And again, thank you all very much. You're really good at the clicking side. Thank you. Okay, close that poll and talk a little bit about marketing and the online marketing side. There we go. So international online marketing. But this applies just as well to domestic marketing. And I think the key, one of the key messages why one does marketing is really that, how events drive a buyer's life cycle is the key. And online marketing creates the events. So if you think about, okay, when do we actually sell stuff? We sell stuff when we go to the farmer's market, when we do a new launch, it's when something happens. That's what you sell. That's what you have in the upticks. And the online marketing is really about driving that top line by creating those events. And it's always, in our view, it always should be a soft sell, an inbound strategy, so that you reach the people when they want to be reached and in the way that they want to be reached at the time that they choose. So you're not forcing anything down. It is very much informational buying for them. I think that's another key. We talked about the buyer's life cycle here, and I mentioned the buyer's journey a few times. And I think what's important as well is to always know your buyer persona. And again, this applies. I've taken an example on this slide of an international buyer persona. But an international buyer persona, if you're just starting out, could even be what's on the west coast of the USA. That in fact could be a very different buyer persona from your local buyer persona. And if many of you in specialty foods are starting in a very localized way, you could say, okay, how do we expand further out? How do we expand our market? How do we actually reach someone in Canada, for example? It's in English. We know they love our product. How can we actually reach them? Well, one of the first things you need to do is really figure out how your buyer persona and how is it different from your local buyer persona. What ways is it different? In what ways does your international buyer persona reach you? where do they go online? How do they interact online? In what way is their buyer's journey different from your local one? This is a screenshot of the website for L'Oreal in the USA. L'Oreal is they make hair care products, but they're really great on marketing, so I always follow them as well. And this is interesting. It's just sort of subtle changes here. So this is the USA, very diverse group of women, all with excellent hair. And in this shot, you've got Mexico. It's again very diverse, very urban. It's the top of Mexico City, very smiley. They're all interactive. The women in the previous one sites were all on their own. There's just subtle changes on this. And this last one again is L'Oreal in Chile, I think. Again, just slightly different, perhaps less urban, perhaps a little bit softer. There's a couch, the colors more vibrant. So again, this is just subtle differences. But in each case, L'Oreal is showing that they recognize and that there are different buyer personas in those markets, and that L'Oreal can recognize them. And so immediately, someone from Chile, for example, sees this, oh, I know that office, that looks familiar to me, I'm at ease with this, let me move on with the rest of the website. Another way of looking at a buyer persona is the way that they engage or don't engage online. This is an example, real life example, of a Facebook campaign we did for a company. We were running campaigns in the UK and in Mexico at the same time. Obviously, the one in Mexico is Spanish and has Spanish keywords and slight differences, but basically they're at the same time, same platform, both on Facebook. Very similar, and we were very pleased because we managed to get 1,200 engagements in the UK market, which for frosty Britain is pretty good. We were very pleased with that. And then we looked at Mexico, and we said, "What? 20,000 jackpot? What have we done? Whoa, this is fantastic!" So that's engagement. Engagement means likes, shares. Oh my goodness. This is wild, let me share some, haha, all this love stuff that you have, all those icons and things, that is engagement. So that's vanity metrics, if you like. The other thing to look at is conversions. Now in this slide, sorry, a little bit hard to read, but you get the picture. The blue and red graphs are the engagement levels. So that's, the yes, I like this stuff. The yellow and green are conversions, which are, where can I buy this? How much does it cost? Where's the distributor? That's conversion. And in this case, what's interesting is that while Mexico has 20 times the engagement, it has almost the same level of conversion. So we know that if you want that level of conversion in Mexico, you've got to do 20 times the activity that you do in the UK to get that. So different buyer persona activity, different buyer persona reactions to very much the same online marketing proposal. On one slide, if you have different, you could have different business objectives and different than marketing goals, and you need to line those up. You need to make sure that you understand what marketing activity does to which goal. So line up the business objective with the marketing goal. For example, you want to turn your customers into advocates, then you want engagements. You want them to say, like this, I love this, yes, share this. If you want to sort of drive leads and sales, then you want conversions. How much do I, where do I buy this? How do I download the instructions? That sort of thing. So again, there's a difference between your objective in each case for each part of your marketing and the marketing goal, and then therefore the metrics that you follow on it. And different places have different, levels of marketing and goals. And one of the key things I wanted to say as well was use video. It is a tremendously impactful way. It is relatively cheap these days to do. If you have questions, let us know. We can help you on that. And it's very, very effective across all markets, not just in Mexico. And the other sort of point, just getting back to that North Carolina company with a nice authentic video at their homepage, you can repurpose and reuse different types of online marketing. So reuse, make sure that you're really stepping up. If you've used that on Facebook in Canada, perhaps you can just change it a little bit and it works in Mexico. If you use it on Twitter, you could perhaps use it on TikTok. If you used it on Facebook, perhaps you could use it on Instagram, and so on. So you're not losing out on things in your future. But you know, the key for all of this online marketing is always measuring it, looking at it, and making sure to, you know, defining your goals, choosing your metrics, and always reviewing it. It is a continuous activity. It's not something you stop quickly. And then just to sort of, again, in one slide, just to point out the sort of 6 things that I would say is your online marketing, the guideline, you know, how to build those relationships with your buyer persona, the relationships that you need to build the trust that you need that someone actually buys from you, that they click, yes, I'll buy this. You need to build up that trust and therefore that relationship. And again, it's those events from online marketing that build that relationship. And the key again is sort of rinse, lather, repeat, don't stop. Right, I'm gonna sort of round up before I round up, how about another poll? And I can drink more tea, how about that? Let me find the poll. Oops, I'm sorry. There we go. So just to say, if you'd like to have more information about online marketing and also the online global programs for North Carolina companies, do let us know. We'd be happy to send you some resources or point you in the way of some blogs or whatever, or drop you an email if that's of interest to you. And again, thank you very much for all those reactions. Right, to close that poll, and just there are a couple of questions that have come in, but just before we go to the questions, just summing up, as it were, the main takeaways, the next steps from us, repeating sort of, I guess, from some of the things where John's statistics, which are pretty amazing, really. So there's roughly, out of 8 billion of us, 5 billion are on the internet. And the average amount of time spent per day on the internet for 5 billion people is 7 hours a day. And whoa. If you are a small to mid-cap company, you can say that this is transformational. This is the platform for me. I can punch above my weight. I know how to reach my prospective clients. I know where they are. I know how to reach them. And I can be at a similar level to a much bigger company. I can really punch above my weight, look, engage, find my buyer personas, engage with them, build relationship with them with effective online business development tools. And basically, we're just talking about localized websites and online marketing. Your website is your best local sales rep. Make sure it is functioning and good. Don't lag it, let it fester in the corner somewhere and be not representative of what you would aspire your company to be. Make sure it's got your absolute voice and your persona in there. Make sure that is a reflection of the quality of your product. And then in my 6 huge over content build slide, but hopefully you can, if you have an interest, you can always read them through at your leisure. And as John was pointing out, we do have these online global programs. The North Carolina reps and state is very generous, very active, and very dynamic. Take advantage of it. Reach out to Ali or to your reps and find out what possible programs are right for you. We have a lot of resources on our website, which is ibt.onl. If you look at the resource section, there's a ton of resources that you can download for free and check out more on websites, on markets, on international markets, on website design, on website usability, on online marketing, and everything else in between. With that, let's go to questions. Before we go to questions, I think Ali also had a few words to say. Ali, perhaps we start with you.
Sure, thank you so much. So just want to supplement what they talked about and let you know about some grant opportunities that might be available. The State Trade Expansion Program grants, these are from the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. They offer up to $10,000 for reimbursement for website localization and e-commerce fees. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, that is one opportunity. Another one is if you are a member of the SUSTA, Southern United States Trade Association, they also offer 50% reimbursement for website development and advertising. And both of these programs have various requirements, but generally you're required to submit materials like the invoice and show, the final product. But that's just a few programs to let you know about what's available out there for funding some of these activities if you're interested. A couple other things that I want to mention since I have an audience with the North Carolina Specialty Food Association. One thing we are doing right now is we are sponsoring international shipping samples. So if you are working with a buyer, right now we are offering reimbursement for product sample shipment up to $500. You would just have to reach out to me to get approval for that, and then we can reimburse you for the cost of shipping those samples. And I think the last thing is we also have another upcoming webinar on Wednesday, February 1st. That's at 2 o'clock, and that is with the Specialty Food Partners. That's a private online marketplace, and they connect retailers with specialty food suppliers. And you can find that in the latest newsletter from the association. And I could keep going, but I will turn it back over to you. Thank you so much for letting me jump in with those.
Thanks, Ali. Those are good information for everybody. I think there's a question, I think maybe John, if you could take it. I'm relatively new to international trade. What are the markets you would suggest are the first port of call?
So this is certainly something that we here at IBT Online can help with, but I would say, personally speaking, I think your best, your most important first call would be to Ali, who has access to research, who can show you for your type of product what the best markets are. What we know is, internationally speaking, there's going to be all kinds of cultural aspects. Tastes are different from country to country, but there are great opportunities. And so I think, looking at this and developing an export strategy and finding out what the best opportunities for your particular product. I know on our call today, we've got folks who are involved in the business of nuts. We have barbecue sauces. We have popcorn makers. We have all kinds of different businesses and specialty foods. Each one of those, I would tell you, there are opportunities for your products. If I were to narrow it down, though, and Ali, I'd love your perspective on this, but what we typically see at IBT Online is when it comes to exporting in general, the two most important partners to any business here in North Carolina are going to be Canada and Mexico. They're the ones that are closest to us. They're the ones that we do a lot of business. They are the top two trade partners with the state of North Carolina. I know we do, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 billion in trade with the Canadians and over $3 billion in trade with Mexico. So in terms of a starting point, I would say those two would definitely represent a great starting opportunity. But Ali, any thoughts you might have?
I was going to say the same thing. I know a lot of companies tend to start with Canada, and we have a upcoming food show, See All Canada, in May that I'm recruiting for. So I know a few specialty food companies are already interested in talking to me about exhibiting there. But yeah, I agree with you. It totally depends. You know, depending on your product, you might have a better market in Central America. So I'm happy to talk to anybody who is interested.
Okay, thank you. There's another question, just a very quick one, I think. These online global programs, do I contact John Loyak or Ali?
I would say we worked hand in hand with one another. And I would say, you know, if you were to contact Ali and say, you know, tell me about some of these grant opportunities. And oh, by the way, who should we talk to about website localization? She knows that we are an organization that can help with that. The same thing from my perspective. If you were to start with me, I will quickly introduce you to Ali to let them know. I would also say, and you know, we work very closely with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. When we do Microsoft Teams or Zoom calls with one another, with clients, we do them with each other. And so I think the best case scenario would be to involve both of us, and we'll tell you what the next steps are.
Okay. There's one that I might take, which is, why did you highlight blogs as an important item? Since I highlighted blogs, I highlighted blogs or news you can use because it's an easy, relatively easy way of refreshing the content on your website on a regular basis and testing out new keywords and making sure your keywords are still intact. So make sure the headline title of your blog is good for keywords. So don't just say, we produce terrific products. That tells Google nothing. But if you say, we have the popcorn, do you say popcorn makers? Popcorn makers, you know, the best popcorn makers, and you know, put the product name and the keyword name and keywords into the blog post and into the title, especially the H1s. Helps Google. And then just, you know, every 6 weeks or every 2 months, whatever it is, or some sort of rhythm, add some new blogs or news you can use, make them real, make them legitimate, content filled, and soft sell. Make them, you know, worthwhile reading with good keywords, especially in the title. So that's why I highlighted blogs. So another one about advantages of Shopify, and just in a very really short summary, it's because Shopify will give you a platform where you have, it'll host your website, it'll give you an easy fill for how to load your products, so you don't have to be extra techy to do the website. It'll give you themes to put on. It'll give you, they call them apps, but they're basically plugins for currencies, for sending things and so on. So it's a one-stop shop. Disadvantage, it is a one-stop shop. There's little flexibility. That's how they do it. No, you know, you can't do it any other way. And it's expensive. Once you go above the basic rate, it starts getting thousands and thousands of dollars each month. Not to do that. We are pretty well at the end of our time, unless there was particular other questions coming in. No, the comments. In which case, I want to thank John and Ali, and most of all to all of you. We know that it's hard carving out a moment of your day, so thank you all very much for attending and giving us this opportunity. Ali, thank you very much for inviting us, and John for being here too. All of you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. See you all soon, I hope. Bye-bye.